All right, thank you guys. Sorry about that. Just a little setup. So today's episode, welcome back to Tech Talk, by the way. Today's episode, we're going over the T-RackS 5 space delay. If you're not familiar, we actually just put it out very recently. The update is in my products. You guys can go ahead and grab that now, and you can demo it for a couple of days as well. So we do have a whole demo page on our FAQ, and we also have a whole tech talk on it. So check that out if you're not sure how to demo it. It's always best to try these on your sessions, on your system, see how they best perform and how they sound, where you can fit them in. It's always best to try it before you buy it. So on top of that, we are going to be giving away a copy at the end of the episode. And if we hit 50 viewers, we're going to be giving away a copy of T-RackS 5. 100 viewers will get us T-RackS 5 Max. So make sure to tell your friends, and if we can hit the goals, we're going to be giving away as much stuff as possible because we do appreciate you guys. And thank you guys for staying tuned here and sticking with me through those technical issues at the start. So if you're not familiar, the space delay is going to be a model of the Roland RE201. Now I'm going to pull up an image of it real quick so you guys can see. Now if you take a look, this is the original user manual. It's going to be very similar to the user manual that you see in the T-RackS 5, in the T-RackS 5 user manual. And what you notice here is that you have all the controls explained, and we actually modeled through physical modeling and dynamic convolution all of these different features. So if you look to the right, you're going to see there's actual tape heads on the top of this machine. That's how this works. It's a free floating tape moved by a capstand. It's not reel-to-reel like most tapes, which is very interesting. And it's actually a 1/4 inch tape. And if you're not familiar with tape, tape goes from 1/4 inch to 1 inch to 2 inch. And the more tape you have, the higher fidelity sound that you have, right? So this is a 1/4 inch tape. So it's going to be a little bit lo-fi, which is cool. But you can do great things with 1/4 inch tape. So on top of that, if you look at how big the unit is, there's actually a spring reverb unit built in there. Now, if you're not familiar, this is actually going to be a 3-spring mono system. And what a spring reverb does is there's a spring and a metal box, which is usually called the reverb pan, that the signal goes through and vibrates, and a transducer picks up that vibration and that signal, and that's how you get that really cool natural sound. Now, not many people love this unit for its reverb sound, but I just wanted to explain that and make sure everybody completely understood what the unit is we are modeling here and why we chose it. So on top of that, you're going to see there's a couple of different things here. This is the diagram from the tape heads of the T-RackS 5 manual. It is actually in place of the original one, and that's going to be the different tape speeds when you have the rate sync on. That's going to be a really good thing to reference back to, so check the manual for that, or you can reference back to this video, pause it, and zoom in. This manual is actually online. If you're a T-RackS 5 user, it's under related downloads in my products. Cool. So you're going to see one interesting thing I want to point out here is the feedback control, which they call intensity, and that's going to be the level of the tape head that's going through your loop. So that's going to allow you to self-oscillate your signal, and essentially that's going to give you some nice swells and some weird sounds. Now, you might not know what I'm talking about, but I'll get into that with some audio examples. Right? And it will self-oscillate when you go over 6, which is a little unique to this little beast compared to other delays that might take a little longer for it to happen, is because the self-noise is going to oscillate over and over and over. Right? So once you get to about 6, that's where you would normally back it down so you don't go too crazy. So let's go ahead and we're going to take a look at the actual model. So on my screen, you can see here all the exact same controls and a couple of extra. Right? So look at the left here. You have an input control, which is going to drive your signal, which some people, it was brought up to me earlier today, use this module just to drive the signal. They don't even want to use the delay. They don't want to use the reverb, just to give it some analog warmth, which is kind of cool. All right, so then you have dry and wet. And if you guys aren't familiar with dry and wet, dry means unprocessed signal, wet means processed signal, and you're going to blend those together. If you use it on an insert, and what I mean by insert is if you're directly affecting your signal, like you can see my signal chain here, I'm going amplitude into the space delay. So that's going to be an insert use. And that's why I have the dry wet dialed down to about, it says 38%, right? So I don't want to overkill my original signal. I want to back it off a little bit and blend those two together. That's what that's for. If you're going to use it on ascend, I have another example we'll go over a little bit later, which goes through this little guy, which is a virtual cable. and sends into this guy right here, which is going to be on completely wet. When you use the two together, that also helps you preserve your transients, give you a little bit more realistic space of room, and a couple of different unique things to insert versus send effects. So that's a really cool topic. If you're not familiar, check it out. Experiment with both. I really like the dry wet control, and I mainly use this guy as an insert just because of the nature of what it is. So let's jump into the next section here. We have a mode. If you notice, reverb only is going to be 12. The 1 through 4 is going to be delay only, and 5 through 11 is going to be reverb and delay. So these are all going to be different options for our heads. Now let me grab just this track, and I'll insert a new one so I don't mess up my settings. All right. Man, I got sucked into this thing. Arlo, you're in for it. If you haven't tried the demo yet, it's worth it. I got sucked in for a while. But all right, cool. So check this out. As I go through here, look at the bottom left. The head pan changes, and that's because those are the active heads, right? So that's what the difference in these modes are, which heads are being used. And personally, I love going all the way to 11, like any person who loves rock, Spinal Tap. And then I'll pan these guys out a little bit. I'll normally give the one side left, one side right. But if you notice, this is head time 1, head time 2, and head time 3. Some people try to mimic this, afterwards by using multiple delay modules. And this is cool because you don't need those. Notice that the head time changes as you turn the dial. And when you have sync on, you're actually going to see head 1 is 8th note, head 2 is half note triplet, and 1 is a dotted bar, which is cool because you can scroll through all these different settings and find what you need. It's all there, and it's all relatively exactly how you'd hear it on the original unit, right? And this is a model of a restored RE201. So this is a completely as accurate as possible as we could get it to all of the components, and we use some dynamic convolution outside of our modeling, which if you guys aren't familiar with our modeling, that's how we do all of our T-RackS and our amplitude stuff, which we've gotten very good over the years. And if you notice, you have some modeling here. I'm going to go over these effects next, and some of them are on the unit itself. You see you have a reverb volume and pan, pretty simple, but that reverb volume is going to go from negative infinity to plus 6 dB. So you can give it a little bit of grit if you need to. You can get some volume out of it if you want. Now, if you remember, I said earlier, it's actually a mono reverb in the real unit. This is going to allow you to use the stereo reverb option and pan left and right, which some people might be familiar with certain bands. Van Halen in particular, the guitar gets panned to one side, the reverb gets panned to another side. Now you can do that with a room reverb, or like they did back in the day, or you can do this, a little bit more experimentally, right? Treble and bass controls, that is actually going to only affect your echo head. I've seen a couple of people confused by that already. What I use these for is normally to dial down the treble and normally boost my bass, depending on the signal. Now, it just helps me fit things in the mix, which I'll get over to the filters in a little bit, but that's going to be a tool just to fit your delay into the mix that you're using and the mix that you're playing. Every situation is different, and you need the tools to be able to dial in and sound good no matter what. So outside of that, I went over the feedback control. What they call it in the manual is pretty interesting. It's called an intensity, and that's just because it's the gain of the head that goes to the tape, which allows you to get that self-oscillation, that build-up swell sound that delays or tape echoes are very known for. And that's why you get that noise when you crank it up past 6, is because the noise itself is going over this tape head and riding over itself over and over until you get that sound. It's similar to if you put a microphone in front of a speaker and you get a huge feedback squeal. But this is much more pleasant and actually a very useful sonic tool when you're trying to create, and especially with sound design. So we'll move on next to this delay section. You're going to see we have volume and pan. I rarely use the pan, but if you like, you can really make your dry signal stand out to the left and then pan your delay to the left or the right and give it a really wide space. When you do use very short delays, Haas delays, which is when the delayed signal and the dry signal are so close together that they actually blend in your brain, your brain can't distinguish the two, that will allow you to then pan and give you a stereo imagey kind of effect. So if you use a really short rate and maybe short feedback, you can use that pan to give you a stereo image. We actually have a preset. It's called widening your hi-hats, which uses a similar kind of concept. It's letting the left and the right slightly delayed from each other and gives you that almost like you double track the performance. All right, cool. So next thing we're going to go over is these filters. Like I was saying, these are actually pretty heavy duty. These aren't on the real module. If you saw it a little earlier, you can scroll back. These are going to be 24 dB per octave filters, which is insane. They're pretty heavy. And what these are for is to fit your delay in the mix to make sure it's not too muddy and it's not overpowering your mix and it's not too bright and actually interfering with your dry signal, because that's the important part, is you want the dry signal to be intelligible in most cases. Now, there are some presets in here that says this is not a delay. That is not the case for that preset. That is a completely different tool. It's a little bit similar to how I was talking about using the input as just a gain knob and not even worrying about the reverb or delay. Cool. So yes, we are giving away a copy of the T-RackS Space Delay at the very end of this episode, so stay tuned. We're almost at the 50 viewer mark. We're at 43, so tell your friends. If we hit that 50 mark, we're going to give away T-RackS 5 as well. So we're going to do 2 giveaways. And then if we hit 100, we're going to give away T-RackS Max. So we want to give you guys more gear. Give us that opportunity. So let's jump in, and we're going to see the ducking. This is a very cool tool, and it's not on the original unit. Essentially, ducking is similar to a sidechain effect where the dry signal is going to turn the wet signal down, and it's going to let your dry signal become more intelligible and kind of push out to the front, and it's not going to muddy into everything else. It's a very cool effect. I love this thing. If you crank your wet all the way up to 100 and then crank your ducking up to 100, you'll hear exactly what I'm talking about. It's a very cool effect. That's why I urge you guys to use the demo period strongly. It's very cool. So stereo reverb does exactly what it says. It turns the, like I said, 3-spring mono spring reverb into a stereo reverb, and it's going to be pretty interesting on how it splits the stereo imaging. Definitely listen to it with headphones or speakers, something that you can really tell the left and the right apart. It's going to make your sound just that much bigger. Next, we have the FX feed. This is going to be what some call the dub switch, and this will cut the tie from your input to your tape, which is going to allow you to kind of build up a swell and then cut it real fast, which is really cool for dub, reggae, and different stuff like that. This does not cut the self-oscillation because, like I said, when you're pushing so much noise through that tape head and it plays it over and over and over, it's going to make that noise. So just so you guys know, the effects feed will not affect the self-oscillation of the noise. But it's a very cool tool. Call it the dub switch. Check it out. Noise. We messed around with this a lot, and tape age, because if you're not familiar with the RE201, I'll give you just a little bit of background. Now, these were made from about 74 to the 90s. The current price is about $800. You can find them, like if you find a really used one for $800, and the real deal is around $2K restored and stuff like that. They do make a remake pedal of this for about $200, but that's still a little pricey compared to, say, the plugin. Now, all of this stuff kind of came to be from the Echoplex and the Echosonic. If you're not familiar with those guys, check them out. They're old tape echoes that kind of created this whole world. Now, the creator of the RE201 made the Ace Tone EC1 echo chamber first, and then when he worked with Roland, he switched over to the RE100, which was the first model of this. Then the RE200, which added the spring reverb. That's the only difference from the 100 to 200. And then we have the 201 here, which is going to be actually known for its way to give tape a much longer lifespan. It does not wear out tape very, very easily. Now you can see tape age, we can go from new to old. That's unique because you would really mainly have a new sounding tape when you use this guy because it doesn't kill the tape. And noise, all the preamps and all of the components in this chain are very clean by the time that they figure out how to do all this. So it's very, very interesting to be able to dial in noise from a unit that was sold to be almost noiseless, right? But that's a cool little history lesson. So let's go ahead and we'll look at the sync. You can see it changes this rate time and all that. You do have a VU meter. just like the original unit, and you have a peak level, which is going to help you see if you're clipping. Sometimes you do need to put the input volume down, but I've also been told using the filters will help you cut back some of that harshness if you do clip, and you can still get some grit, right? And you have this nice little reset button. And if you're not familiar with T-RackS, if you press Control and click, or Command if you're on Mac, it's going to reset the value to its default. So you don't have to worry about tuning knobs and going crazy. You also have undo. And if you guys aren't familiar with T-RackS, it is completely resizable, even without purchasing T-RackS 5. The free version, completely resizable. So that's a great little nuance if you guys weren't familiar. Now, let's go ahead and we're going to check out this guitar loop. I'm going to play it with the effect on first so you can really hear a good example. And then from there, I'm going to turn on the effects so you can hear how dry it really is. Now there's amplitude and then the space delay. I'm going to pull up the space delay just so you could see the settings. Yes, I was actually sent that guitar track, and it was clipping a little bit, but it was for a lo-fi track, so I wasn't too worried. And if you notice, the amplitude 4, when it goes through the whole modeling, it gives it a little bit of a nuance. It almost gives it a little bit of a crackle. But thank you for pointing that out, Matthias. It actually worked very well in the track. Now, of course, mixing has its rules, and I always try to follow them. But when something fits and really works in a mix, and that little nuance helped it stick out and kind of like push, rules are meant to be broken or bent, whatever you want to call it. All right, so that's our guitar loop. You can hear completely dry. It did not sound that great, but then I threw it through my amplitude, which, by the way, if you guys are not familiar, Joe Satriani is out, Amplitude Joe Satriani, and that's the Boston amp. So this is actually as clean of a signal as I could possibly get for you guys. Notice that I have my input gain just set normal. I turned off my echo, chorus, and I'm on clean 2. I did not touch anything else. We're not even going through a cab because of how the Rockman works, right? No rack effects. So very cool, right? So all that was the space delay. I wasn't doing anything else to it. Space delay and the Boston just to give it some life. Nobody wants to hear a completely DI track, unless it's from the AXIO, then it sounds pretty good. Which, if you guys aren't familiar, Marty Schwartz did a video on it. It's really cool. Check that out. Marty Schwartz is an excellent guitar teacher. So let's actually jump into the next example, which is going to be a drum loop. Now I'm going to play it without anything. I'm going to show you guys the settings on screen, a little bit smaller so I can see the waveform. Make sure it's dry. Right. Cool. All right. I still hear some effect. Okay. That's why. Funky. Oh, haha. Because I was giving you guys an example earlier, I forgot to delete my plugin. All right, it happens. You'll sit there with the compressor for 10 minutes before you realize it's bypassed. It's happened to all of us. Right, so you can hear how I'm giving it a little bit of extra rhythm and making it a little bit more interesting. It's a little bit of a reggae groove. I ripped this completely out of Moto Drum. Really cool little beat. So check that out one more time. It's almost got a polyrhythm going on, which is awesome, right? And that's just the space echo. There's nothing else on my track. I'm not doing anything behind the scenes. I actually turned off the room in Modo. I just used the basic studio kit. That's my favorite one to go to, and then kind of dial in from there. Let's go on to the next example, which is going to be a piano, which is the opposite of the guitar that I was sent earlier, which clipped. This one is very quiet, but that's completely fine. Let's listen to it dry real quick. You see, I do have a send on it, so I'm going to give you an example in a second, but it's completely off. Okay, cool. So you can hear, I just added a very subtle amount. I didn't want to go crazy. If you notice, I'm really riding the reverb volume hard because I don't want it to stick out. I want to just hear it, and then that's it. I don't want it to be overpowering. I don't want it to muddy up my mix. And I usually use the filters to dial out some stuff. You notice I rolled off under 190. I do push my bass here, and I crank down the treble to help my dry piano stick out a little bit. But here's the send example. So that was an insert. Let's try the send. Oh, here, that's a good question. Let me show you guys the sends example, the settings. Because again, I'm not doing anything too crazy here. If you notice, these are just some basic settings. Presets are great. The presets here were actually developed by our team, and they're really interesting. But I just start off. Normally, I'll go with reverb only. Sometimes I don't want too much delay, so I'll pick mode 1. Otherwise, I'm on mode 11. It's my favorite one. I like all 3 tape heads. And then I just pick a rate, feedback, all that good stuff. But if you notice, I have wet all the way cranked here. I don't have my low passes moving, but I have my ducking on. I don't want this to get in the way of my signal. The same reason why I have my bass and treble moved the same kind of way that I used earlier is to push out the bass, because I want my clarity of my piano to stick through, and then a little bit of oomph for the room, not too much. Right? And if you guys are interested, that piano was recorded with a jammy, if you guys don't know. This little guy is a MIDI guitar. And I used it with Sample Tank 4, so I didn't mess with any of the settings. It was Sample Tank 4, the binaural piano. Cool. So let's go ahead and we're going to check out the last example, which is going to be some vocals. And the vocals already have some effects on them, so I'm really going to use this just to bring out a little bit extra. Now, a lot of people don't like the reverb in the RE201, and that's perfectly fine. I love it. I love Spring Reverb. But let's check this out without any effect on it, and then I'm going to just add the insert effect on top, which is going to give us just a little bit of delay to add some more space with that reverb.
Dance through the daylight, feel the sun from the inside rushing through me. Dance through the daylight, feel the sun from the inside rushing through me. Dance through the daylight, feel the sun from the inside rushing through me.
Now you could see as I was going, I was making adjustments because nothing ever as a mix engineer is perfect. You're always making tiny tweaks, but reverb almost non-existent. Even though I did use mode 9, which has 2 heads activated. Stereo reverb is off. I didn't worry about that. And I was using the filter to kind of make sure that the reverb or the delay vocal doesn't overpower my original vocal, because I'm using it as an insert. And that's also important when you use it as a send, but very crucial in this case. The ducking is also very cool. Here, speaking of, let me give you guys an example of the ducking. Just if you guys are just tuning in now, we're giving away a copy of T-RackS 5 Space Delay at the very end of this episode. We're 2 users away from giving away T-RackS 5 as well. And then at 100 viewers, we're going to give T-RackS 5 Max. So stay tuned to the very end. We're almost approaching that time. So let me go ahead. I'm going to show off the ducking. If you guys have any other questions, please throw them in the box now. We're going to start the giveaway in just a little bit of time. Before we do start the giveaway, I want you guys to create an IK Multimedia account, and I want you guys to be ready to send that in the chat. I'm going to ask a very simple question. I'm going to wait for everybody's answers. So if it takes you a little bit of time, we're going to be here listening to audio demos. So go ahead and jump in and do that. I'm going to show you exactly what that 100% ducking does. See some people in the chat asking. So let's go ahead and we're going to jump into that guitar. And guys, get ready for the giveaway and your chance to win T-RackS 5 Space Delay. Let's throw it here just so I can see where my playhead is. That's always safe choice, right? So check this out. We're going to go all the way wet. I'm going to turn ducking all the way on. So you can hear as the dry signal hits the VU meter, it turns this guy down. It turns down the actual affected volume, which is really cool. That's one of my favorite tools. Let's go ahead and show you guys the noise. Pretty prominent, right? Really sticks out. But I personally don't like that much. I'll probably be around, if I really want it, maybe 5 or 6. If you're not familiar with the difference between new and old tape, the old tape is going to warble a little bit more, give you a little bit more pitch variation. It's going to have a lesser fidelity and frequency response just due to the properties of tape. And it's also very similar with the speed. If you guys aren't familiar with tape speed, the faster it gets, the higher pitch it gets, the slower it gets, the lower pitch. But it's very, very subtle changes. And when you use a slower delay on a tape echo versus a digital delay, unless it's emulating a tape echo, it's going to give you a little bit more of a bit of drama. That's some like Jimmy Page used to do a lot of that stuff on tape. The whole No Quarter song was stuck down one semitone. If you guys aren't familiar, go listen back to it. And it actually just gives the whole song, in his words, more drama. It's more dramatic. It makes it more powerful. It hits harder. But yeah, so very cool. This is definitely something you guys want to check out. It's completely free to demo. We just released it. So in a couple of minutes here, we're going to do a giveaway. We're going to be giving away the T-RackS Space Delay. We didn't quite hit the 50 viewers. If you guys have 4 friends that you want to invite, I'll still give away the T-RackS 5 if we hit the 50 before we get out of here. But right now, we're going to ask you guys a quick question. So everybody get ready in the chat box. And if you don't have an IK account, create one now before you answer the question. If you already have the Space Delay, don't answer the question, because we do not do any substitutes for these giveaways. We'll always do another giveaway another week, so you will not miss your chance. Great. So the question is, what is your favorite type of delay? Now, that means, is it an insert? Is it a send? Do you like to just use it for effects? You don't like to use it to add space? Outside of that, is it tape? Is it digital? What are the nuances? Not the model. I don't want to hear the model. I want to hear the type and the uses that you guys really like to go through. Okay, cool. So go ahead, throw your answer in the chat. We're going to just ask for your IK username if you do win. I'm going to give my mod some time to answer everything. But yeah, if you need to get the unit, all you need to do is update to the latest version, 5.4.0. If you're not familiar with what version you're on, go ahead, click the I button in any single module or the suite, and that's going to show you that. If you guys already have T-RackS and you're very familiar with T-RackS, you don't need to hear this, but this is also available in the suite. Ooh, ping pong, slapback, ping pong triplets. I love ping pong or slapback delay for old blues guitar. It makes it. A couple artists famous for that particular sound. So here is the suite, just so I can show you guys the example. Make sure to pour in your answers to the chat box. What is your favorite delay? Ping pong, slapback. Do you use it on inserts? You only use it on sends. You never use it on inserts. Give us the lowdown. We want to hear from you guys. We want to hear what you guys like about delay. What makes it unique for you guys. Warm analog on vocals, analog ping pong. Everybody loves that, and that's the really cool thing about the this particular emulation is because we spent 2 years of just research figuring out how to emulate tape properly and make it as realistic and natural as possible. That's what the T-RackS tape collection is all about. If you guys haven't heard it, those are high fidelity machines, and it's insane how cool they sound. If you've never used tape, you might not know all the different subtle nuances, but it really, really does make a huge difference. So that's actually built into here. This is going to use our tape modeling. It's a little bit different. If you notice, I have all these modules and my CPU is barely hit 30-40%, and I'm kind of being a jerk about it. I'm adding modules on modules on modules for examples and examples and examples. I'm also running this whole stream through an Ethernet cable, if you're not familiar, to my other computer, which is streaming live. My audio is going through my AX IO on my desktop, through my iRig Pro Duo IO onto my laptop. Slapback with a garden hose. Creating drims flam or ghost notes on the drums. Ooh. Or to slow stuff down. I actually, if you go back a little bit, you'll hear my reggae example where I did just that, kind of added a polyrhythm to something just by adding a little bit of delay. I'm surprised nobody is saying that they love to stare at their pedal board and just turn knobs for days, because personally, that's my favorite way. Messing with this thing, it's one of my favorite things to reach for outside of T-RackS Sunset Sound Studio Reverb. That's got to be my favorite for reverb at the moment. This is my favorite analog tape echo. Warm, long echo for guitar solos. Nice. That's a very interesting guitar solos. That, for me, it just gives you that ambience, that nuance. And I love when you do the bounce back from left to right. If you notice, I loaded it in Suite here. And in Suite, you have the benefits of this whole metering section. You can set up a chain. Let's say if you wanted to compress your signal on one side of the chain, but you also want to process it in parallel, you can do that real quick. You actually don't even need to run this in your DAW. You can run this in standalone outside your DAW. Here is some of the presets. You can see they're nice and easy to pull up. Undo is there. You can load an entire chain of presets. You can A/B all of them, and you can turn the whole chain on and off. Here's your automation control, which appears pretty easy. Just add it simply, just like it was in Pro Tools if you guys aren't familiar. Super quick. Then you have your gear, which is going to give you some preferences, similar to a couple of different modules, and your info button, which is going to show me 5.4.0, which is the latest. The question mark will bring you to the user manual, so definitely reach for that if you need it. Favorite is sending analog tape or ping pong on a vocal or a guitar send. Okay. All very good answers. Very good answers. And don't forget, guys, this is for the opportunity to win the space delay. We almost gave away T-RackS 5. We didn't quite hit the 50 viewers. We're only 5 or 6 away. So if you have a bunch of friends that you think you can get jumped in here, pull them through. We'll give you guys away the T-RackS 5 afterwards. That'll give you a bunch of modules on top of this to work with. Automation with your delays, that's very crucial. If you like to move the feedback knob to create that oscillation that I was talking about a little bit earlier. So let me see. Can I get you guys an example? Ooh, smooth. All right, so let's turn this guy off, and let's see if I can do a nice little swell here. There, you can just hear two different tape tricks. If you guys don't mess with the feedback or the rate, that's going to bring life to your performance. As you let something swell out, increase that feedback, and then when the next transient hits, bump it back down, and then swell it back up, bump back down. When you have time in between different parts, you want to add just a little bit of nuance. Move that rate knob from one side to the other and just crank it back. You're going to get those tape modules just moving and that sound oscillating over and over. It's really cool. Cool. I just turn knobs and see what sounds good. That's a very good answer. I cannot argue with that. I was doing a lot of that earlier today. Always automate delays. Yes. Oh, actually, I missed a question. Sorry, guys. Ray Mears. So at 100% ducking stops the unit from doing it. So when there's vocal pause, you hear the delay, right? The ducking is going to, yes, let the delay come out after the vocal has stopped. When the vocal is pushing on that VU meter, the ducking is enacting, right? So that's how that's kind of working. If you look at the VU meter, it kind of helps you visualize it. But great, so we're almost at the end here to give away a copy of T-RackS Space Delay. If you guys have not already, like and subscribe to the video. Every week we do a bunch of different giveaways, a bunch of cool different stuff. I can't quite announce the topic for next week, but it's going to be very interesting. Stick to it. You guys will see that pop up very soon. So we actually, it looks like we have a winner here. Congratulations, Joe Brown. Go ahead and shoot your username into the chat box. You just won yourself T-RackS Space Delay just for watching this short video. That is Joe Brown. Go ahead and shoot us your IK username. We're going to leave the chat open until you win or until you send it over to us. I actually just went over the self-oscillation. If you want to go back a little bit, it's kind of cool. I'll do one more quick example. And now if you just have the unit here, watch this. Now I'm controlling it just for the sake of the video. I don't want to kill your guys' ears, but you could really let that thing go. That's really cool. But yeah, Joe Brown, congratulations. And thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to give you guys some stuff and to answer your questions. You guys are the heart and soul of IK, so we definitely appreciate you guys. If you're not familiar, we're doing a bunch of great promotions. Check the link in the description. You're going to see all the details. If you're not signed up for the newsletter, we let you guys know as soon as possible. Any updates like that. We will eventually get 1 hour of Peter dancing on stream. It'll happen, Dark Striker. But thank you guys again for tuning in. Congratulations, Joe Brown. We're going to... We'll make sure to wait for you to send your information over before we close the stream. I just want to thank you guys all again for tuning in. If you guys want to throw some comments into the video to let us know what topics you guys want to see in the future. It could be very specific. It could be very broad. Do you guys want to see iOS? Do you want to see Uno Synth, Uno Drum, specific stuff, anything like that? Let us know. Tomorrow we'll be live with Derek Floyd, 4 p.m. at YouTube and 5 p.m. on Instagram Live with our other team. And on Thursday, we're going to be switching over our normal guitar lessons from IK Guitarist to the YouTube. And if you guys aren't familiar with Jesse Ricca, he is an amazing guitar player, and he explains things in a way that it just usually guitar teachers fly right over my head. It takes me a bunch of times. I have to write down notes, but this guy, he explains it in the way that you can really understand it as just a guitar player. It's always a pleasure. He's gone over some interesting stuff like 2-5-1 lines, using the pentatonics and stuff like that. So tune in. Definitely worth, if you're a guitar player, check it out. He's an insane guitar player. Teach you, and he does private lessons too. So if you guys like what he does, you can always message him. He works with the Ricca Project. They do some great audio. They have Spotify. It's got some new tunes up. And if you guys do tune in, make sure to send us some comments, like and subscribe. We want to hear from you guys. You guys are the life and blood of IK. Thank you guys all again. We'll see you guys next week.